Welcome to Special Times with Peter Filosa and another episode. Shawn Dooley is the current state representative for Norfolk, 9th District, covering towns of Plainville, Wrentham, Norfolk, and parts of Walpole, Millis, and Medfield. He is currently running for state senate against Democrat Rebecca Roush in a newly drawn district, covering towns of Bellingham, Dover, Franklin, Medfield, Milford, Millis, Needham, Norfolk, Plainville, Sherburne, and Wrentham. Shawn has also served as the state representative for Medfield's precincts 3 and 4 since 2014. I recently met Shawn at Medfield Day and at the dedication of the Medfield section of the new rail trail. Welcome, Shawn.
Thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
So,
what inspired you to run for state representative in 2014?
I had been currently serving as a town clerk, and the person who was previously in the spot, a gentleman named Dan Winslow, used to be a judge, great guy, got this phenomenal opportunity that he couldn't pass up, and he had to move to California, so he resigned his position. And so Dan came to me, he's like, listen, I think you would really like this. I think you would love, I know how much you love public service. Would you consider it? So I'm like, all right, well, I enjoyed being a town clerk, but never thought I would go into this form of government. And I just said, you know what, I'll throw my hat in the ring, and if it works, great. If it doesn't, I'll just keep being a town clerk. So, and I threw my hat in the ring and I won, so.
That's cool. What do you consider your top accomplishments as a state representative?
My top accomplishments, I think, are probably very different than what a lot of other politicians or political people. My top accomplishments are helping individuals. I've been very, very fortunate to have people that have reached out because they were in a place that government was hard for them, and there was things that were going on. My favorite story is where I had this couple that came to me. They were trying to adopt some children, and it was a bad situation. The parents had died, and no one wanted them. The kids were kind of orphaned all over the state, and they could only adopt 2 of them because the state regulations said, based on the square footage of their house, they could only have 2, but they wanted to keep these 4 children together. The kids were having, severe issues. There was some special needs. There was a lot of things going on, and I was able to get involved. And fortunately, Mary Lou Sutters, who's the secretary, was able to help me. And that same day, I happened to be having lunch with Governor Baker and explained the situation to him. And long story short, we were able to have the state step in and get some things. They actually put an addition on their house, and all 4 kids got to live under one roof. And that was 6 years ago, and they've grown and thrived, and they're doing incredibly well. And I actually got to go over on Christmas Eve and actually bring them over their adoption papers. So on Christmas morning, they got to open it up and be adopted, and it's one of those really happy ending stories and that's kind of what drives me. That the politics is great, the legislation's great, but the people, the personal service and the personal touch is what really I consider as the best part.
That's great. What particular projects and legislation have you been involved with that benefited Medfield?
Let's see. Well, this year we did the AEDs. Myself, Denise Garlick, and Paul Feeney. We put in different bills, one in the House and in the Senate, to get AEDs at all the recreation fields. And so that was one that we just did really recently. We've done some road improvements where we've got 27 and 109, trying to get that all fixed and squared away. It's been very, very good. Probably the biggest one has been when I first came on. who was when I was working with Denise Garlick and Jimmy Timilty at the time, was the state hospital. That has been, an ongoing, focus, and I shouldn't even say a battle. It's been very, very positive, but there's been a lot of steps along the way, getting DCR involved in the back and getting that all, worked out, and, now that, and getting Belforge put together, and they have so many great, shows and exhibits, and watching that grow and succeed. It's been, there's probably 50 moving parts on that one, and I'm fortunate being partners with Denise, because she's always taken the lead on it, because that's her side of Medfield, but we've always worked really well together on that. So I think that's one of those things where, when it's all finalized, I think it'll really help define the town, and it's going to be a really great long-term project.
That's great. And one thing you don't know about the Medfield State Hospital is that it's rated number 8 as one of the most haunted attractions in the entire state.
Really? I did not know that.
Yeah, it's rated number 8.
Number 8.
Like, they did like a whole
some of the buildings, or
on the Travel Channel, like they went to Medfield State Hospital and they did like whole investigation and for the ghost people.
Yeah, well, hey, this is going to be aired around Halloween, so you got a good tie-in there. That could be the Halloween tie-in you could have a Halloween show up at the Medfield State Hospital.
And I also met Governor Baker for the Vinfin. I went to a Thanksgiving dinner in 2019 before the pandemic. I went to a Vinfin Thanksgiving dinner, and I got to meet, I got my photo with Governor Baker and Ed Markey.
Oh, very cool.
I met both of them, wonderful people.
Right.
Very nice.
I've only met Ed a couple of times, but Charlie's one of my closest friends. He was actually down with me yesterday. We were walking around Franklin and, meeting, I was taking him around to meet a bunch of local businesses, and then we had a little, get together afterwards. So, but I'm going to miss Charlie when he's gone. I had a good relationship with, Deval Patrick, and I have a good relationship with Maura Healy, who, more than likely will be our next governor. But Charlie and I have had, we've developed a friendship, and he's just a great all-around guy.
I had the honor of meeting both of them. I got my photo with both of them, so that was a real honor.
That's awesome.
Why are you now running for state senate, and what do you think you can accomplish as state senator compared to as a state rep?
Well, I'm running. A lot of people ask me to run. The Democratic Party kind of helped me out. They changed the district dramatically and made it a much more Republican-leading district. And I think one of the reasons I really want to run is we need balance, especially right now the Senate is a 93%. There's only 3 Republicans, so it's 93% Democrat. And I think it's important, especially if we have a Democratic governor and all the constitutional officers, 85% in the House, and if I win, it'll still be 90% in the Senate, that we have other voices in there to give a check and a balance. And it's not Democrat or Republican. I think if the Republicans had a 90% majority, it would be equally as bad. I think you need to have 2 sides, and you need to have someone that can speak truth to power and stand up. You can't just let a super majority, make all the decisions, because that's just not how democracy works. It's good to hear debate and discussion, and and hearing other ideas. And I think that's my main purpose of going up there, is that I want to be able to be part of the process and bring in different viewpoints, and just not have it all be determined by the Senate President or the Speaker of the House.
If you need someone to be a world's #1 sign holder,
you're the man.
I'm your man.
All right, you're hired. I'll take you.
Because I have a plaque at home from Karen Spilka.
Oh, do you really? Oh, that's awesome.
Being the world's #1 sign holder.
That is phenomenal. Karen is great.
Yeah, I have a plaque by her as like a what's it called? Citation.
Citation. Yep.
of being the world's #1 sign holder. Eileen
that's very
got
cool.
that for me, so
Eileen DeSorga?
yeah.
Oh.
What do you think are the biggest problems in Massachusetts government that need to be fixed?
Probably there's a lot. I would say probably the biggest one, in government is transportation. I think we need to make sure that we, the MBTA has a whole bunch of problems. They're still using engines from 1950, diesel engines, so they're polluting. We don't have, especially out here, we don't have enough frequency for people to be able to use it all the time. And so I think that's one of the things that just needs to be completely revamped, whether it's bringing them in to a central hub and then shooting into Boston, or electrifying it so we can get the rail going a lot faster. I think there's a lot of things that we can do because, let's face it, Boston's biggest problem is that it's, it's surrounded by water on one side. So everybody's coming in from one angle, and so the roads just get chock-a-block. I mean, it's it almost doesn't matter. We're back to pre-pandemic traffic patterns. Doesn't matter what time you go into Boston, there's traffic. And if we had a better train system, I know a lot of people that I love taking the train, but a lot of people won't take it because they have to be at work at a very specific time, or more importantly, they have to get home at a very specific time to pick up their kids from daycare or whatever. And if they can't count on the train, then they can't do it, and then they have to drive, and it's expensive, and it causes more traffic, and so on and so on. But there's plenty of other things that we can fix. I'll take up your whole show if I do that.
I also got the honor of meeting the woman that's gonna run alongside Mar Healy.
Oh, Kim Driscoll.
Kim Driscoll,
Yep.
Wonderful person.
I have never met Kim.
I have.
She's the mayor of Salem and everything like that, but I haven't ever had a chance to meet her.
Well, I
yet.
met her at the Medfield Library.
Oh, did you? Okay.
For the Medfield event that we were having, and she came, and I got to shake hands, get a photo with her. So she was really nice.
Awesome.
As a special needs adult, I gradually appreciated Scott Brown when he appeared during his race for U.S. Senate at the Mass Advocate Standing Strong annual convention and spoke to our group. I was also in a day program at HMEA in Plainville, and they gave me training and job support when I worked at Shaw's in Medfield. Have you been involved with any groups like Mass or HMEA or LifeWorks and supported their missions?
Yeah, 100%. I've done a lot of work with HMEA. I'm also on the fire department in Plainville, so we service them. And it was funny. A couple of years ago, I was meeting with them in the morning, and we were doing a walkthrough, and we were going through all the programs on the like the recycling, and then the florist shop, and all of that. And then in the afternoon, there was a medical there, and I showed back up, but I was in my fire gear, and it was funny because they were like, "You look really familiar," and I'm like, "Yeah, I was here this morning. I was just look very different not being in my suit." And that's a phenomenal program. Bright Horizons is another one. They're based in Worcester, but they have a major facility in Rentham, and they have a day program. And one of the things that we need to do with all of these programs is increase the funding. Right now, when I was talking to that organization, it was probably 2 weeks ago. ARC's another one. They're having a really hard time hiring people because we don't have enough state resources for them to pay competitive wages. And so they're especially like in nursing, they're losing their nurses because let's say they're paying their nurse at $75,000. The hospitals are short on nurses, so they're offering them double the money to go to work at a hospital. And so even though they want to serve the community, they're like, how can I turn down $150,000? And so they end up leaving, and it just creates a harder and harder problem. And I think Bright Horizons was saying that they had over 400 spots open for staffing that they needed to fill, and they just couldn't fill because a lot of the low-level stuff is like at $15, $16, $17 an hour, and it's hard work. I mean, it's and it's important work, and it's not just hanging out. Whereas if you don't have the passion for helping people with different abilities, then it's too hard just to get a job. You'd go to McDonald's where you can make the same money and get a free cheeseburger, and that's what they're competing against. So we as a state need to incentivize that and bring in additional resources to make sure that that community is fully served and fully staffed.
And I was at a day program called ETC in Somerville, called the training center in Somerville called ETC, Employment Training Center. And since the pandemic, I have not been allowed. They determined because of the staffing and whatnot, I'm not allowed to be back there ever again. And so they're looking for a job coach for me right now to come to my group home 5 days a week.
Okay.
From either 9 to 2 or 10 to 2.
Okay.
And 5 days a week. And they can't find me anybody to help me get a job or anything. So I've had to rely on my mom and dad to help me with when job places call me for interviews.
Right.
I've had to have my dad help me with that. So
yeah, and I can talk to your parents, as well, and hook them up with a couple other organizations that do that same thing. And put it this way, the more angles we hit, the better chance we have of getting success. I mean, and I think that's one of the things I really like doing. It's I think as a rep, I think that's really important to have the relationships. And where I've been successful is, my relationships aren't just with Republicans. Marty Walsh is one of my good friends, and so when he was mayor, I was able to get all sorts of stuff done in partnership with the city of Boston, and by knowing all these different organizations and meeting these people, when someone calls me, I'm like, I might not know the answer, but I know someone who does, and so I'll circle back with your folks on that.
I could really use your help.
Nope,
So.
I would love to. I'd be honored to help you.
Have you had any involvement with Commissioner Jane Ryder and the Department of Developmental Services? One of my shows is an interview of Jane Ryder and her leadership of DDS.
I've never met with the commissioner, so I mean I've spoken to her office a number of times, but never with her personally. So I don't know her personally. But I've on behalf of a lot of our constituents, I've worked with DDS trying to get things done. I'm sure your parents could probably speak to this more than I can. The level of paperwork, especially when you transition, at age 22, the level of paperwork and the amount of, you got to fill out this form and put it in triplicate and then make sure somebody gets it, is very, very daunting. So I've done more work with DDS on trying to just make sure, as children's transition, to different programs that, all the boxes get checked and everything continues on, and the health insurance and Social Security and everything still remains in place.
Have you had successful collaborations with any of your Democratic colleagues in the State House? Any favorite people to work with, either Republican or Democrat?
Well, as a Republican, you either have good collaborations or you don't get anything accomplished. So it's you learn. You don't have to be a math whiz to understand the dynamics. I'm very, very fortunate because I've, especially around here, we have great. It's not like Washington D.C. For the most part, there's a couple Republicans that are a little kooky, and there's a couple Democrats that are a little kooky. The rest of us are pretty much, somewhat in the middle, and we all work together because we all want the same goal. We're all trying to help people. That's the reason you go into public service. We're here talking about Medfield. Denise Garlick is one of my favorite all-time people. She's an incredibly nurturing soul. She's a nurse. She's a mom. Mom of a special needs child, and her compassion and her empathy always shines through. And she is, has been great for me. She's in leadership in the Democratic Party, so she's been great for me, because we've been able to balance each other out, because if she can get things done on her side, and then I with Charlie Baker, we're able to make sure things get taken care of for Medfield. But she helps me, even if it's not Medfield, even if it's one of my other towns, she'll help. And then Jeff Roy down in Franklin, Jeff and I are friends. We go bike riding together, and we've done a lot of different community events. But Plain Ridge, the casino's in my district, and some of the farms and a lot of the workers are in Franklin, which Jeff represents. So we've done a lot of work on that together as well. And then Paul Feeney, who currently represents Medfield as a senator, is just a good friend. We go out for lunch probably once a month, and we're both Irish, big Irish guys, so we like to have maybe some chicken wings and a beer.
Important issue is reproductive rights.
Yep.
Where do you draw the line?
On reproductive rights, I'm more of a traditionalist. I'm more that Roe is settled law. I voted to codify Roe and keep it there. Where I voted against is, where I'm personally against is expanding like a full-term abortion and partial birth abortion, things like that. And then I'm also, as a parent of a 16-year-old daughter, I didn't like when they did drop the age of consent down to 16. I think it's still very important for parents to be involved in their minor children. I think that's a very, very, I wouldn't want my daughter going to any doctor for anything if I didn't make sure the doctor was safe and the facility was safe and everything like that. And it's, I find it funny that, we do that in Massachusetts, but it's illegal for a 16-year-old girl or a 17-year-old girl to get her ears pierced, but they can have such a significant procedure done. You're good at this.
My dentist and her office are strongly in favor of question 2. What do you think about the proposed restrictions on dental insurers?
I'm also in favor of question 2. I think it's, and it's not my area of expertise, I will admit, but I've met with a lot of the dentists, and they've given me the horror stories of these insurance companies basically taking advantage of them and using most of the money for all their internal stuff and only a little bit going back to the dentist. And so I think the average person assumes that, I think the bill brings it up to 85%. Most people assume that a majority of what you're paying for dental insurance is actually going to take care of your teeth and pay for the dental aspect, not administration and fancy cars for the CEO of the insurance company.
What do you feel about question 1 and taxation in general?
I'm opposed to question 1. I don't like a graduated income tax, but I very much worry, especially as we're in a more difficult economy and things are starting to get a little bit, the recessions, inflation's going up, reflation's going down, and post-pandemic, a lot of people work from home. A lot of people are able to just do remote. If we take the wealthiest people and a lot of the business owners and we penalize them with an additional 4% tax, I think it's very easy for them to work out of their house or move their business up to New Hampshire or work out of their house remotely from Florida, and then we'll lose all the money. And and also if you're starting off a business and your goal is to sell the business, 9% is a big penalty to pay just for being in Massachusetts. And I think it's dangerous, and especially at the time right now where we have tons of extra cash and we're giving back $3 billion. We have so much extra tax revenue, we're giving back $3 billion. And so I worry about making Massachusetts a place that a lot of people don't want to bring their business to. We saw it when Connecticut did similar things. That's how we got GE and we got some of these other businesses. Same with New Jersey. When New Jersey did it, a bunch of people moved their businesses to Florida. It's really, really easy to move your business to New Hampshire where you don't have any taxes, income taxes, and you're only going to have to move your business a half hour you can still keep your Red Sox season tickets and just drive. It might take you 15 minutes longer to drive to the game, but it's not going to be a complete different lifestyle. And you could probably even still keep a lot of your employees, because it probably takes just as long to drive from Medfield to Nashua, New Hampshire, than it does driving to Walpole, getting on the train, and then going into town, South Station, and then walking all the way over to your business. And that's what I worry about.
Do you have any concerns about the election integrity in Massachusetts? Do you think anything should be changed or subject to increased scrutiny?
No, as I say, it's a great question. As a former town clerk, and I also got to be the interim town clerk in Medfield in 2020 when your town clerk left, kind of suddenly. I came in and volunteered for the month and got to run the primary and everything like that. What's nice about Massachusetts is we have 351 cities and town clerks, and they protect the elections. I'm not saying it couldn't ever happen, but every single one of them I know, they would rather chop off their arm than have anything bad happen to their elections. And so they take extra precautions to make sure it's safe. And what we have is, as opposed to other states, and I don't know how all the electronic votings work where you press the button and things like that. What's nice about Massachusetts is none of our systems are connected to the internet, so you can't hack them. All of our system has paper backup, because you go in, you take the piece of paper, you put it through, it reads it, and then the state does a random audit of a bunch of ones afterwards. I did one of the audits last year. The only recount we had in 2020, I think it was out in Belchertown. I was the Republican representative, and we actually hand counted all the ballots, and they came in exactly the same as what the computer tabulated for. So I like our system, that we have that check and balance, that the computer does it, but also we then can take the paper ballots, hand count them, and double check the computer. So I think that keeps it very safe here.
We want to thank Shawn for appearing today on Special Times with Peter Filosa. We also plan to interview Becca Rausch in the next several days. The election is coming up on November 8th. Early voting has already started. Please vote. Goodbye.
Awesome. And I'm going to get a Peter sign holding at some point in time. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.